Emergency 911 District Board. Before we get into approval of minutes, what I'd like to do is just take a moment to have a moment of silence in honor of the person who should be chairing this board. That's Chief Tony Cuevas. So if you would, just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First, we'll approval of minutes from the last meeting. If anyone had a chance to, or if everyone had a chance to read those, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion. Do I have a second? I had a second. Any discussion? Second was by
Chief Grayer.
Chief Grayer. All right. Do I have any discussion, any questions? If none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passed. Reports. Moving on to our Emergency 911 District Board, the finance report.
Okay, right now we should be at 50.41%, and we're currently at 42%. However, I did just receive our annual billing for our tower monitoring and maintenance, which is just over $26,000. So that'll bump that percentage up a bit. But does anyone have any questions on the finance report?
Any questions? Okay, moving on.
The director's report. My director's report was attached to the packet. There are several items of interest that I want to address from the director's report. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate two dispatchers that were recently promoted to shift leader positions, Nicole Coast and Adam Daggs. They join our leadership team, and they'll be a good addition. I would also like to address what is labeled Lucas County radio authentication on the director's report. It's the P25 link layer that'll help us be able to communicate with the Ohio system. On the director's report, it states that we don't have any updates, that we were still waiting for delivery. However, we took delivery of those on Monday, and we're scheduled for installation Monday and Tuesday of next week. The fire chiefs have been given a schedule, and I will see all of them tonight. So I'll firm that up, and hopefully we'll get that taken care of next week. The third thing I just want to bring up is we had been working on the backup HVAC for the dispatch center, and that work was completed on May 12th. And I think Miranda's taken quite advantage of that system already. Yeah, so that will be taken off the agenda. The fourth item is on the director's report. You'll see tower site repairs. I was contacted by a letter through MPSCS that two of the towers that the county owns, the Medina Tower and the Tecumseh Tower, both need some grout work on the foundation. So what they'll do is they'll go in there, clean up the foundation, seal it, then redo the grout, and then seal it again. They're telling me that once that's done, it will never need to be sealed again for the lifetime of the tower.
They were pretty descriptive if you saw the paperwork in the packet there, so.
Sorry for that. And that was already approved at the cost of per tower $6,250. So the total cost of that is $12,500. The next item, we would like to replace our Mevo Anywhere kit. That is, we call it a MAC kit. What that is our backup phones. It allows us to take 911 and administrative calls remotely, and it also keeps us operational when our primary phone system goes down. One more, Carissa, please. Okay. So as you see the quote there, for the first year, the cost would be $9,275. That's the cost. The extra cost for that is for configuring everything. And then the cost after that annually is $6,660. That they still will own the equipment. That gives us access to the equipment. So if there's any software updates that need to be made, anything that is maintenance on that, software updates, they take care of for us. And the agreement is for 5 years. That locks in this rate for 5 years. So we're looking to approve that agreement because it's a multi-year contract that has to come through the formal process of the boards. So I'm looking for approval from this board to go ahead and move it forward for us to update and refresh our MAC kit.
I have a motion to approve and send this forward for the amount of $9,275 for the first year and $6,660 for years after that.
I'll make a motion.
Motion,
I'll support.
support. Any discussion?
How, how does that fit into to the 5-year plan? I mean, obviously,
It would be our technology upgrades.
so it's
Mhm.
covered in that.
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor of moving this forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We will move that forward.
Great. The last issue that I want to bring up is it has come to our attention that we are having some inconsistencies in radio coverage in building in the county. I know Chief Greenleaf's here. Blissfield's having some problems. We know that there's problems in Madison schools, Sand Creek schools, Britain schools. So I wanted to bring this issue to this board for discussion. Discussion of possible solutions and funding on how we would pay for those solutions.
So it's not just one, but one location kind of brought this to light when we were doing, was it the active shooter, I believe, that was brought up. And since then, it's been noted that there are other locations. Now, one of the things that we did talk about was the fact that when Motorola came in and did their study, and I know that Commissioner Ungst was deeply involved in that. One of the things that they did talk about was that the coverage was supposed to be outside, and the coverage was going to be for I believe it was 94%, 95%, and of outside coverage, and it did not include inside buildings. We knew that there was going to be some issues. We just didn't know to what extent. And so we believe the best thing to do is to bring it in front of this board to kind of get the conversation started. It affects pretty much all of Lenawee County. It affects all of the agencies. And so this is a good place to start and kind of bring this up. Chief, did you want to make any comments on that?
I'll try to
Make sure the mic is on there.
Yeah, just kind of give you some background. So this all started about maybe a year or so ago when we were doing active shooter drills in the Blissfield schools. We had done those in the past, but this one was unique in that we were training with the fire department. So we were utilizing the radios for the first time in a training scenario. And that's when we discovered we could not transmit or receive from inside the buildings. MPSCS did come down, I think it was about a year ago, and did a study, and they confirmed that the reception and transmission was intermittent at best in the buildings. And I don't know, I never saw reports. I don't know if they ever gave us some actual numbers or not. At the time, Motorola was there, and I think the initial price tag, they wanted to put in biodirectional antennas in the buildings. And just in those buildings, I think the price tag was $138,000. There was no funding mechanism in place, and it kind of ended there. And Lieutenant Purdue did run into the Motorola rep earlier this year, and he reached out to me again, and we had another conference. And I flat out told him, I said, I can't go to the village council and ask for $138,000 to fix that gap in the radio system. So that's kind of where we're at today. Miraculously, during that conversation, Motorola started throwing around a number of, well, what if we got down in the $50,000 range? It's amazing how we went from 138 to 50 in a matter of one or two conversations, but we did. So that's where it's at right now. It isn't just a village, like the sheriff said, it's not just a village issue. The school district serves 5 of the communities: Palmyra, Riga, Ogden, Blissfield Township, and Blissfield Village. So the majority of the students actually don't live in the village. If we do have an incident there, it's a county issue because it's not just Blissfield Police, it's fire departments, it's the ambulance services, county sheriff, state police, everybody's coming in is going to be dependent on that radio signal. So that's kind of where we're at today. Like the sheriff alluded to, it's a county-wide issue, and we're not. I can't speak for my council or anything, but I wouldn't be of the position that we're absolved of any cost. But I don't think it'd be appropriate to ask my village to incur the entire cost of the project. So that's kind of where we're at today. Mike Gunner, my council presence here, he's kind of taken an interest in this too with his past experience on the Blissfield Fire Department. So that's kind of where we're at. Just like the sheriff and Lieutenant Purdue said, kind of discussion issue to try and figure out how we can best address this issue and get it resolved, because it certainly is directly a public safety issue. And God forbid we have an issue in the schools. The last thing I want is for us to all be saying in front of the cameras, trying to explain why we couldn't communicate with one another in the dispatch center. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for the chief at all? Wait, Chief, don't go anywhere.
Sorry? Well, not necessarily for him.
Mike?
Some comments. So the BDA that actually is designed for the in-building coverage, and they're very useful and definitely have better coverage with it. The hospital uses it, and they needed to, because we wouldn't have coverage without it. The only problem with the BDA is it's specific to that building. So we're gonna need a lot of BDAs. But one thing that I'm wondering that may need to be looked into, I think we're still gonna need the BDA, but the radios are now 6 to 7 years old.
Correct.
And they may need to be retuned, and well, we may need to be starting to talk about replacing them. I know Jackson County, they were about a year ahead of us, and I was just talking to they had a big fire yesterday. I was talking to some of their firefighters on that, and that's what they're talking about right now, is they're noticing their coverage is not as good as what it was when it was new. And I'm noticing that as well for us, is it's not where it was when it was new. And I think maybe some of these are getting out of tune or something like that. So.
And that, I think that was one of the considerations that we were looking at also is, the age of the radios also. As you know, when we were in Clinton school, the radios did not work in Clinton schools. They bonked in there too. So it is an issue with throughout the county. And for example, now, when the hospital, you mentioned the hospital, when it was built, it was required that they had BDAs put in. So part of the new code when building a new building, especially a building that's all concrete, is that they do put BDAs in there for that purpose of getting out anytime there's an issue and anytime there's police or fire EMS that have to go into that building. So I think that this is a good place to start, because we need to talk about the scope of it. We need to talk about, all of the impacts that it has. And of course, the funding is another issue. And as far as, is this something that can be grouped among the different entities that are out there when it impacts schools? I know that there's grant funding there. I know that on top of that, there's funding that other sources that we can reach out to. So I'm not sure that we were expecting any kind of a solution today,
No,
obviously.
we were.
But
One more question.
Sure.
During this whole discussion, my understanding is there's only 3 towers in the county, and the closest one to us is in Adrian. I think there's one in Tecumseh and then somewhere on the west side of the county. There's 4.
Yeah.
What is the closest one to Blissfield? Is there one closer than Adrian? And that would be the one in the sheriff's department, right?
Ottawa,
No.
No.
Oh.
State Police.
Old State, okay.
Ottawa Lake,
There's.
Yeah.
not in the
There
county.
is one in Ottawa Lake?
Yes.
There's one
You-
in Tecumseh, but
Commissioner, yeah, there you go. A little closer to the mic
All right.
there.
there's one in Tecumseh, but the way it works, you're also bouncing off from Monroe County. So,
Correct.
because it goes one county beyond. So for you, I'm going to say, yeah, like I think somebody said, Ottawa Lake would be the closest.
What discussion of another tower, would that be excessive or unnecessary? Are we putting Band-Aids with BDAs? Would a tower be ideal? Or,
Those are all great questions, and I
yeah,
think that
and I'm not expecting.
we would
the
want to
answer
have
just thrown out
Motorola
there.
or somebody that is,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what they do. And so, any thoughts on?
And if it
My
was a
only
tower,
thought-
who's,
my
yeah,
biggest
tower.
thought is funding, because
Yeah.
our radio lease is not paid off until October of 2027. And we all know that's, $775,000 a year. So that's an issue. We
If-
definitely have radio replacement in our purview. It's on our 10-year plan. But we're being told from Motorola that the radios are good for at least 10 years. So, I mean, yeah,
PM and they tune, they think during.
yes. that's-
And if you were doing a series of BDAs, would it be cheaper to do a tower? And again, not expecting the answer. just
And
throwing
I don't
questions out
know
there. So
how much a tower would
I
impact,
have
because
no idea.
we had a training at Madison Schools 2 weeks ago, and we had the same problem in there, and
Yeah.
they're real close to the Adrian Tower.
I think that's part of one of the problems that we have at MIS is that if you get everybody together in one area, they're all bouncing off the same tower. And now you've
You've used all
overcome
the
towers.
telerepeaters.
That's why we had to limit the amount of channels that we were using out there. Creating difficulty, obviously, in a situation you're discussing.
Yeah. Did that problem, maybe did that happen in Oxford? Did they have that issue? Radio
I've been to a
communication?
couple debriefs with that and that was never brought up.
I never heard of
Yeah.
that being an issue. So,
Yeah, like I said, it's a big problem. It sounds like it's a countywide problem and
well, and again, this is a good starting point, and we appreciate you coming
Yeah.
in and
I do have
Appreciate
one
your
more
time.
question.
Yeah.
You said 50 to 100,000 for the BDAs, correct? Is that?
initially the estimate
just the
was
one for like your.
for the 3 buildings was
Three buildings?
138,000. And then during our discussions, he said, well, because we were talking about, what if the school district and the village and the county split it up? He goes, what if I got it down to say like 15,000 each? I said, so you're now in the 45, 50,000 range. I'm like, well, that's a far cry from 138, but amazing how we got there that quickly. So it was just bouncing numbers around. And again, I said, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you no. If we can come up with something, I would certainly present it to my council. I'm not trying to put a price tag on kids' lives, none of us are. I mean, we get that. We've got to work within the limits that we have. And I certainly understand that. I sat over here for a few years, so I get it. And again, like I told Lieutenant Purdue a couple times, it's an issue. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. I don't know, I don't know if BDAs are the right way to go, or I know in the old system, we had a mobile repeater that we had in the Blissfield units had mobile repeaters in them. And that cost us back then, I think they were about $2,500 a piece. And what we had a training officer there to do was to hit a button, turn on the repeater if they were at the schools. But I don't know if that option still exists or not. But Motorola, their solution was the BDAs,
And that was on the VHF system.
VHF system, right?
so, and
So-
of course, go ahead, Craig. I was going to say there may be grants out there that we can look at
Yeah.
through the state and.
There was one that Lieutenant Purdue sent me, but apparently there's no funding in it until this fall, maybe.
Yeah, it opens in October.
Got it.
Well, I
ahead.
think the first step was we got to figure out where do we need BDAs, not just Blissfield, not just, so we
Right.
gotta
All the schools.
figure out, is it needed in every school, in every building, in every school? And then I understand schools are like priority, but then do we draw the limit at schools? What if we get
Right.
other public, schools are public schools, they're public entities. What if we get other public entities? Well, we don't get service inside of our township hall or we gotta draw a line somewhere.
I think
from
we owe it
public-
to this
public-
board to look at critical infrastructure.
Yep.
you know.
Well, exactly. And schools, I think, is very important, like top of the
Yes.
list, but we also got to draw the line somewhere where,
Well, we have that same issue in my building. I can sit in my office and bonk away, and it was happening today. I was telling Mike on the way up here. It's weird. On a sunny day like this, it seems like we have the most problems. I'll sit in the Coney Island in Blissfield and have my radio sit on the table and it's just bonking away. It happens a lot. Ironically, it's weird. It's on a hot sunny day is when I seem to have more problems than on a rainy, cold day.
Radio signals will bounce off of clouds, so when it's cloudier, they don't have
Yeah.
to travel as far.
Right,
believe it or not.
So
So-
I think probably one of the first steps, or at least the things that we can do is kind of direct our dispatch to,
But having said all
Okay.
that, I wouldn't expect the county to fix the Blissfield Police Department structure problem. I mean, that's our
Well,
facility.
you
So-
wouldn't, but somebody else might. That's what I mean. We got to draw the line somewhere. We're going to do
Yeah.
this, whatever the solution ends up being, we're doing this for schools, but we're
Yeah.
not doing it for, every
Well-
township building, every public building.
To be fair, I think the school districts bear some responsibility, financial responsibility.
Right. And I'm
too,
not saying
so-
this, that we're going to take care of 100%, but
Yeah.
if we come
Right.
up with a solution, whatever it is, third between
Sure.
township.
so this
villages.
definitely is to be continued
Oh, yeah.
and.
It's a
we'll-
complex issue for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you again for
But thank you
coming
for
in.
your time.
Yep.
If I could just add one more comment too, I do believe the future plan for the schools was for them to come on to the 800 system too. We developed a plan for that way back when we went on the radio. That's why they all have talk groups. So
Oh, for like the school districts or for the
Yeah.
buses and
yeah,
stuff?
for the buses.
Yeah.
that
Okay.
Type of thing. So
Yeah,
thanks,
maybe
Jeff.
that's something.
Thank
There's
you.
a template in the radios already, or not a template, a zone for schools, and every school has a channel on the radios currently. If they were to buy their own 800s, they could get that zone programmed on their radio, and they could use them
Well,
now.
hopefully if we start a conversation with the school districts, because they may not be fully aware. I know my school district is, I've talked to the super about it, but most of them may not understand how critical of an issue it is.
Mhm.
So it's, like, again, I appreciate your
Yep.
time and attention to the matter. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, chief.
All right. Any more discussion on that? I think we will definitely, we've been working on it, at least looking at possible solutions and avenues. So expect that we'll keep it on the list of things to talk about and move forward.
Sheriff, not to drag the subject out a little bit more, but I talked to Lieutenant Purdue at a certain point that about the radio encryptions, we were getting new radios. We just got them. We have the new radios. You had brought up at one point in this conversation, maybe it's the age of the radio. We have all brand new radios. We just got them last week. And it was going to be a conversation I was going to have to you about the encryption anyway, off the record. But moving forward, we can go to all these locations with some of our new radios and see if maybe we have better reception.
That would be a good
Be helpful.
good starting point too, to rule out or confirm what we may or may not know. Perfect.
Be helpful.
I'll let you work with Sergeant Hudson on that.
We talk.
All right. Moving on.
Just one last thing, our staffing levels. We hired Brianna Lindeman on June 2nd, so she is our 19th dispatcher. And we have the application process open and we're receiving a lot of applications. So Sergeant Hudson's working through those. So we hope to have somebody hired in the next few months.
Perfect.
That's all I have for the director's report. If anybody has any questions.
All right, moving on to, do we have any existing business to talk about? Nothing? Okay. New business, Mevo Anywhere Kit. I think we already covered that in the director's report.
We'll cover in new business, but I missed my own note.
Yeah, sometimes we overlap on the things. Public comment. Any public comment?
I'm Mike Gunter. I'm village president of Blissfield, not exactly representing council, just much like you guys had talked about the issues with the 800 system. I do have some familiarity with it. Worked for Huron Valley Ambulance and dispatched them in Washtenaw County for 12, 13 years. So before that, though, I have utmost respect for all you guys. I know it's a challenging position, challenging jobs where you guys are. So thank you for your service and everything that you do. But secondly, just going back to, the political side of it. And yes, we're our cell phones and our landlines, we're funding this 911 system. So again, sometimes we feel like the southeast quadrant of the county, we're the forgotten ones. We're not the busy ones up here, Adrian, Tecumseh, et cetera. But again, if we're funding that, I guess my question is, why are we bouncing off a tower in another county? We're a rectangular county. You would think, 4 towers, 6 towers spaced out evenly would get nice coverage across the same, why we have two towers within 5 miles of each other and quite a hole in the system everywhere else. Is that a Motorola thing? Is that a political thing? Is that, do we want to put coverage here? Or, who had the decision making in that, I guess. But again, I guess just representing, my quadrant of the county. Again, we pay those funds. We want to see the benefit of that as well. We don't want to just see it worked up in Adrian and Tecumseh, et cetera. Other than that, we get it. Technology is expensive. It's hard to keep up. The emergency sirens we're talking about, Texas, things like that, what's going on, we can't set off tornado sirens. We don't have a county system in that. So again, I get technology. Once you buy it, it's already obsolete. And that's kind of a challenging thing, and funding is always a challenging thing. But again, just representing myself as a Blissfield resident, I expect the same sort of coverage and quality that Adrian residents, Tecumseh residents, Clinton residents are requesting as well. But again, appreciate everything that you do. I know you guys work hard, and it's always a challenge. And it's good to hear more dispatchers being hired. You guys deserve a lot more money. I'll give you that, because I know what I made at HVA versus what some of your dispatchers make. So again, it's part of being proud and living here and et cetera. But again, thank you guys for everything that you do, but let's work together. Let's communicate and do what we can to, make things run the best that we can working together. So
Thank
for
you.
that.
Any other public comment? Seeing none? Motion up.
I
Commissioner?
want to make a commissioner comment, if I may. Chairman Van Dorn wanted me to make sure that I expressed sincere sympathy for the loss of Chief Cuevas on behalf of the county commissioners. And you have not lost Terry as your representative. He's on vacation, so I'm only here replacing him for today. But we are planning on doing a resolution for
Thank you.
here in the near
Yeah.
future.
And obviously, Chief Grayer is the alternate from the chiefs, from the police chiefs. And so moving forward, he'll be representing the police chiefs. Obviously, we'll at some point need to elect a chair moving forward, but that's a little too soon right now. Let's get this meeting done and move forward. So appreciate it. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.